Good evening, I'm Eugene Chan and welcome to Straight Talk. Our guest this evening is Jennifer Ma, the Chief Strategy Officer of CTF Education Group based in Hong Kong. Herself, a first-class honours graduate from Oxford University, she worked in the investment banking industry at Merrill Lynch and Goldman Sachs before deciding to pursue her passion in education. Jennifer is also involved in organizations that recruit and fund scholars from Hong Kong and the mainland to further their studies in the UK, and also leads a team of expert counselors to guide students in applying to top UK boarding schools and universities. With her extensive experience and visionary approach, Jennifer is uniquely positioned to shed light on why so many Hong Kong students continue to choose to study abroad. Welcome, Jennifer.
Thank you, Eugene, for having me.
Over the past 2 weeks on Straight Talk, we have talked about whether the local Hong Kong education system can produce top talents. So tonight will be a very good episode to compare with the topic on overseas education, which you have been working on for so many years. Maybe we can start with some statistics. Actually, how many of our students do overseas to study, and sort of which countries are most popular and why?
Well, the latest statistics that came out in about May said Hong Kong's sixth form graduates, we're looking at 25% going abroad to study, right. Which, despite it being a drop from the past, is still quite a high figure. Historically, UK has always been a popular destination, US, Canada, Australia to follow. But over the past few years, we have seen an increase of interest going to China as well, with around 4,000 students a year applying to China universities.
Right, so Jennifer, when you're saying that 25% actually is quite a high number, if we include those actually may leave earlier in, say, in even primary school or even early secondary school, how many percent do you think we have our students actually start going abroad to study?
We're probably looking at a third, 33 to 35% at least.
Right. So has the landscape of overseas education changed much over the last few years?
Yeah. Well, actually, the global education landscape has changed quite dramatically over the past 5 to 7 years, I would say, partially induced by COVID, legitimizing the whole online education space, and also with the advent of AI, parents and students are now really reconsidering what is the quality education definition and which jurisdiction gives them the best opportunities. And oftentimes when we're talking about university, it's not just about education, it's really about beyond education, the career paths in different parts of the world.
Right, so the latest trend, I would say, for studying overseas is people still going, but they look at things at a very different angle.
Yeah. Over the past 5 to 6 years, to be honest, we have seen more students opting to stay put in Hong Kong for tertiary education advancement.
Despite the 1/3 of the people you mentioned.
Yes. For various reasons. Some feel that they would like more affiliation to China, understanding of the China system. So for example, studying law in Hong Kong, there are a lot of electives that are very practical and relevant to the Chinese legal system. And so they feel that going to a Hong Kong university, they have an early start to understanding the real world relevance. And also Hong Kong universities have become much more innovative in what they offer. But despite that, we still see a very strong trend of students going abroad, especially at the younger age.
Right. We have often talked about in Straight Talk that 5 out of 10 Hong Kong 5 out of 8 universities are actually in the top 100. Is that helping the attraction for Hong Kong students to stay in Hong Kong?
Definitely, and also Hong Kong universities have become so innovative over the past 10 years in their offering. So if you look at a lot of the degrees, they have a lot of electives for choice. Many of them are very practical in delivery, and also a lot of them have intercalated years where students actually do gain international exposure while staying in Hong Kong. And of course, students feel that the pedagogical delivery has also increased in standards. A lot of the subjects offer tutorials, small classroom discussion-based teaching. So I think all that has increased the popularity of Hong Kong universities.
Right. When you talk about different courses, people often think about where you should go. Are there any countries that are more popular for specific courses?
Well,
it used to be like computer, you must go to IT, you must go to the US.
Yeah. I think in the past there had been a stereotypical perception towards UK being more academically focused, more famous for professional subjects like medicine and law. And that's still true because UK still has the biggest and most established healthcare system, public healthcare system. Whereas US is more entrepreneurial, more science focused, but things have really changed. So over the past few years, we have seen a convergence of the UK philosophy and the US philosophy, which are the key two philosophies of global education. UK subject choice has doubled.
Really?
Over the past 5 years, from 30,000 to now 50,000 subject choice.
Choices?
Yes.
Wow.
And of course, that includes a whole new set of subjects like AI, data, science, etc. But also, one subject has been split into many degrees. So for example, in our generation, we'll go for like pure economics or pure engineering, and LSE only offered pure economics, and Imperial only offered pure engineering. But now you cannot do engineering at Imperial, but you can do 10 different types of engineering. So mechanical, civil, design engineering, and you have to pick when you're applying to university. So the requirement of students' maturity of choosing even a subset of a subject is much higher now, and they really want to see that students passionate about that particular discipline.
Right.
So that's UK. One big trend is further kind of specialization of professional subjects. But another trend in the UK is interdisciplinary subjects, which is becoming more like the US system of the liberal arts system. So in the UK, there's a lot of combination now that actually crosses arts and sciences.
Right.
And so flip side on the US, in the past, they always advocate for liberal arts, and they really look at leadership, entrepreneurial spirit, even when you apply to university, right? But now there's definitely a much more focus on students' subject orientation. So they will actually ask you, if you were to come to this university, what subject, what discipline may you want to pursue? You can still change, but at least give them an indication.
Right. So Jennifer, with all these, such a wide range of choices available, would that be one of the main reasons of, what would say, the factor of motivation of Hong Kong students going abroad to study? I mean, I used to think maybe they want to be exposed to different cultures, or they think they have a better career prospects. But what do you think will be the major sort of motivation factors for students who go abroad still? It's quite high number.
Yeah, the traditional reasons like independence, cultural exposure still stand. Academically, I think Hong Kong students are very, very competitive. They do not need to go abroad to get that academic enhancements. But I think it's the general education philosophy and mindset that you will get from going abroad. UK, US, or any kind of overseas universities really want to appreciate and acknowledge students' passion. So your genuine passion for the subject or your genuine passion for community engagement. So I think that's quite refreshing and quite inspiring for students. Secondly, I think Hong Kong is in many ways limited by space. So even a school in Hong Kong, you would not have a lot of space for sports, for example, or a whole independent building just focused on performing arts. But you can go abroad, and just the facilities can really complement the pedagogical offerings.
Right, I see. I think after all, at the end of the day, I think the parents will have a very decisive factor in determining whether a child will go overseas to study. Do you think nowadays, how do parents influence the actual decision for the kids to go? And what are their key concerns and priorities? I'm sure the viewers are going to ask, should I be sending my kids? So what shall they be considering the most, do you think?
Very interesting question. We have seen such a big shift over the past 15 years. At the beginning of our consulting journey, most of the decisions, I would say, are very highly influenced by parents. But over the past few years, I think even parents themselves have changed. So they, especially those who are involved in the workforce, understand that studying a particular subject does not mean you become that profession after that degree, and that the world really needs more interdisciplinary professionals. So parents have laid off a little bit. They actually allow students to choose more. And secondly, this current generation are also a lot more purpose-driven.
Right.
So they would actually say, I want to do this, I've researched into this, and I feel this is more aligned to my value, my purpose, and my interests. So with the two kind of trends, we have seen a much more diverse choice of subject selection amongst our students.
Right, Jennifer. So what you're saying is the common beliefs of the new generation isn't as focused or sort of more laid back or tongping in China, as you say, is not true.
It really depends on what segment we are looking at, but we have always been helping students with the top university applications.
Right.
But even that, in the past, a lot of students are good students, and they're very obedient children, and they would listen to parents. But in this generation, they really have their own purpose. If they are advocates of environmental sustainability, they would rather do urban studies
Right.
than economics, even though their grades qualify for going for these traditionally popular professional subjects.
Right. It's interesting, isn't it? I think many years ago, when our parents, sort of that generation, when they go overseas, it's because Hong Kong has one or two universities, hasn't got the courses they want to do, but nowadays they are given so much more different choices.
Yeah. But even for medicine, for example, right, we see it's a very highly sought after subject. Even this year, most of the super scholars are going for medicine.
Yes.
But those who go abroad perhaps are going for biomedical science, biomedical engineering, applied medical science. So they're really looking at the whole healthcare system and how they can contribute as opposed to a single professional pursuit. So I think this mindset is very refreshing, actually, for educators, that we are seeing much more independent minds.
All right, Jennifer, let's take a short break now. But viewers, we will be right back. Thank you for staying with us. Ms. Jennifer Ma, the Chief Strategy Officer of CTF Education Group, is with us this evening to share with us her insights on why some Hong Kong students still choose to study abroad. So Jennifer, on the first part of the show, you have told our viewers the latest development or trend in education globally and even Hong Kong, and nearly a third of our students have left Hong Kong for overseas to study, maybe from the early years until sixth form. That's what you have said. In the last few episodes that we had some great students from top scorers from Hong Kong, and all of them seem to be very purposely driven, as you said. The younger people now are with a purpose in life. How do you think the pandemic or even the sort of geopolitical influence is sort of affecting their choices whether to stay in Hong Kong or to go abroad?
Significant impact. Over the past few years, we have seen parents who have really looked into Hong Kong universities as options, simply because they feel that, be it safety reasons, be it political alignment reasons, they would rather choose a local jurisdiction. And also cost is also a concern. A lot of the universities abroad have become quite expensive over the past few years, and it's really become a cost-benefit analysis. And ultimately, Hong Kong universities are very strong at providing career opportunities at the undergraduate level. So even at the time when I was in Oxford and Cambridge, career discussion was not at the foreground, actually, because they felt that if you have a good degree, you can go and find your own job. Whereas in Hong Kong, a lot of universities give them that exposure early on with a lot of corporate affiliations.
Since you mentioned about that, we often, many friends or even ourselves have our kids sort of going abroad even at an earlier stage. I think before the interview, I said to you, at our parents' time, they only go overseas after they finish Form 7. At our times, when you go into Form 3, Form 4, you're already one of the very few who go abroad. But you've told me they even now go even earlier. Is that right? It
is all about competition. So if we look at UK universities, for example, back in our days, one subject, economics, we're looking at maybe 12 to 15% success rate. Now the subject has split into 5 to 8 different sub-degrees, yet each degree, the competition is at 4% success rate. So it's low single digit. Okay, so with that, if you backward review the competition for secondary schools, they are also hoping that the top students go into these top universities, right? So they are recruiting students at an earlier age who are of that talent, abilities. So the examination requirements are much higher. So for students in Hong Kong who are already doing a quite a rigorous local curriculum, and having to prepare for the overseas examination at the same time is very, very demanding. So over the past few years, we have seen students leaving as early as 10 years old to prep schools in the UK and even US actually, so that they're actually immersed in that environment and doing an aligned subject selection to prepare them easier and better for boarding school applications.
Did I hear you say 4%? Of applicants
admissions,
get in? Yes.
no, admissions rate for some of the top London colleges and the competitive subjects. We're looking at low single digit.
Right. And also earlier you mentioned that there are now a lot more choices for students to choose in terms of their career. But it seems like all Hong Kong super top scorers, mainly they all still choose medicine. I think out of 10 students this year, I think majority will still choose medicine, majority will choose stay to Hong Kong, one may go overseas. Is that comparable to overseas sort of subject choices? Actually,
we have seen a significant increase of interest going to healthcare-related degrees in UK and US. I think it's a few reasons. One is COVID, so they really saw the impact of not just medical practitioners, but also researchers. So all the bio-related subjects have become quite popular. And secondly, is they're actually seeing this industry is gaining commercial interest. So venture capitalists are putting resources, investing into these, otherwise just research-based degrees. But now actually there's a commercialization potential of these graduates' career development. So I think it is quite interesting that the whole healthcare-related subject series have become quite popular. And the other one is actually computer science, obviously. AI, computer science, all the quantitative based subjects have become quite popular too.
Right, and see, Jennifer, with your work, you look at different countries, so you try to know kind of the application and success rate that you just mentioned. So which countries or regions are sort of most competitive in general to attracting international students? I know that the Hong Kong government, I think the chief executive have also said before that we like Hong Kong to be, because we've got such good universities here, we want to be like an education hub. Does Hong Kong has the quality to be there, or we're too far off compared to other international cities?
I think I would say there isn't like a particular jurisdiction that is more competitive, so to speak. Maybe their general admissions requirements may be more cumbersome, like in the US, they look at your whole 4 years of profile, etc. UK academic requirements. But I would say the competition really is more concentrated on the top universities. So a lot of students now are saying, if I don't get into the Ivy League in the US or the coastal universities, East Coast, West Coast universities, I'd rather stay put at a really good university in Hong Kong rather than going to a second tier, third tier university. Same thing in UK actually. We are seeing the Russell Group schools are becoming very popular, and there's a consolidation of the weaker universities where students are going into these, prefer to go into these top universities. So in Hong Kong, I think we definitely are competitive. First of all, the society's emphasis on academic excellence is high. So students are well prepared at an earlier age. But I do think Hong Kong universities will need to stay competitive by being more innovative in collaborating with industries, right, to give more immersive hands-on experience to students. Because Hong Kong is a small city, and that's why we see a lot of Hong Kong universities venturing to China, because there's space, there's also a closer proximity to corporates, so that we can do the bridging much better. So I think Hong Kong University is doing a lot to integrate with the GBA area to give students that kind of exposure.
Actually, a lot of the Hong Kong universities are setting up sort of a branch within the mainland. Even our City University, even our Chinese U, our Hong Kong U, etc., isn't it?
And I think it's great for Hong Kong universities. Increasingly, they're giving undergraduate students a glimpse into research as well. There's a lot more celebration of research projects that's been successful coming out from Hong Kong universities. And that is really why global rankings of universities, a lot of people think is due to students' success rate, students' graduate career prospects, but actually a very big percentage that drives global university ranking is their research capability. mobility.
I see.
So a lot of our students who opt to go abroad to study is not because they feel Hong Kong universities are not competitive, but because they actually want more exposure to research and to the at an earlier age.
Right, Jennifer, I'm sure the viewers is going to start to think, if I'm going to send my kids to overseas, say starting from secondary school, we have to look for the right boarding schools. I remember with my children, even to find the good and appropriate school isn't easy. So how difficult now even is to go into, to be accepted into a good boarding school? Say in the UK, how difficult is it?
The thing about boarding schools in general is that in the past, they always had intake from select few countries, right? So Hong Kong was always a very big feeder region. But now they are much more globalized, and schools are more cognizant of the diversity of international student cohort. So they're looking at Southeast Asia, China, a lot more students applying abroad. So hence the kind of competition landscape has increased. And therefore, when it comes to application requirements and also admissions testing, it's also become more difficult. But mainly they're looking at English, maths, and verbal, non-verbal reasoning ability. So it's pretty much transferable. And that is where sometimes it does challenge some of the Hong Kong students who are very well versed from a content perspective, from a knowledge perspective, but when it comes to skill-based unseen texts, they may need a little bit more enhancements.
Right, Jennifer. Cost is definitely a big consideration for many families, especially with a downturn in the actual economy. So can you give a ballpark figure? Say, how much money shall one family be preparing for going to university abroad or even high school? And overall, is it worth it?
I mean, it could be quite diverse, even with boarding schools. You could go to a grammar school that offers boarding facilities and take in international students, and that's like a third of a UK boarding school price. But if I were to say a ballpark figure, you would at least need 300,000 Hong Kong to as high as 800,000 Hong Kong.
Per year?
Per year, depending on what universities or schools you're going for.
But is it worth it, though, at the end of the day, do you think?
So it really...
It's a lot of money.
The value proposition really depends on the family. So some family members feel that just being abroad and being immersed in that culture and learning things that you may not even have the exposure to in this part of the world is already worth it. And some parents feel that simply going abroad and be able to find your passion,
right,
okay, is worth it. And so I think it really depends on families.
Right. The last question I'm going to ask you is, I know that you've been doing sort of a building an education hub and boarding school in Guangzhou. I think you're trying to link up the actual commercial element and the actual study element of the system. Will this be a new trend, be short?
We really hope we are establishing a new concept in running K-12 education, because ultimately getting into universities, you really need to prepare students at an early age. So we advocate for the kinder varsity model, which is kinder means children, kindergarten, varsity is like university. So we are hoping to bring together the community of industry practitioners, industry corporates, as well as tertiary education researchers and scholars, faculty and teachers, and also learners, which include students and parents, and jointly come up with really innovative pedagogies and learning experiences for students to not just learn knowledge, but also skills and transferable competencies relevant for the current real world.
Right, so I'm afraid that's all the time we have, Jennifer. Thank you, Jennifer, for sharing her insights and expertise with us. The trends and developments she has highlighted have given us much food for thought as we consider the future of education for Hong Kong students. As Nelson Mandela said, education is the most powerful weapon which you can use to change the world. Thank you for joining us and have a good evening.